Well, let's start with the first question that we had queued up. And this actually surfaced last week when we did the deep conceptual dive on what is the quarterly cycle, its role in both performance and agile adaptation and recalibration of the strategy. And we had a question come in, great, as we are developing this rigor and rhythm and structure to the audiences, the purposes, the what are we doing, why, and hows of the quarterly cycle, there was a question about, great, when we land on that structure, what happens with all the department, like the group level, the team level, kind of like the operational meetings? Do they get absorbed into the same structure? Are they left ad hoc? What do we do with that? And so that was the start. And I would love to, and if you're on this and you're already, if you logged in and into Miro, drop a sticky and just if you have something to contribute, create a sticky, put it in there. And I really feel like at the heart of this question is if there's operational meetings going on, do we fold those into the cadence and structure of strategic quarterly cycles or not? And I think it begins with answering the question, are those meetings driving progress of operational things that are disassociated with the strategy, or are they associated? And if they're associated and they're laddering up into it, they should be part of the same structure. And Erica, you have an opinion on this. I think this is really powerful. You and I were talking about this yesterday.
Yeah, I do have an opinion about this. I think, yeah, it's what you just said, Jeff. I think, and again, for folks that have opinions as well, come off mute or raise your hand. Like, let's hop in, add a sticky note, whatever you'd like to do. My personal opinion is the organizations that we support have been the most successful when this cadence is rigorous. So, and I said that last week, right? When like there's rigor and it's consistent and it's like irritatingly consistent. I would call it irritatingly consistent because I'm actually not that consistent as a human. And so, but the consistency of this process has been has made or break the execution management and effectiveness, I would say, when we talk about really having an effective agile quarterly cycle. And then I think if the project level meetings, like you said, Jeff, ladder up into the overall performance of your OKRs or your goals, then I think you got to get that sync. You got to get them synced. But some organizations don't have that yet. So I think we need to be a little cautious about being overly prescriptive about that. And then the other thing I thought about is, it's kind of cool that we are all creating some standard languages around OKRs as a method for strategy deployment, right? God love the world of marketing that book. Okay, cool. So that means there's some common language. There's common language around sprints and, and obviously riffing from software development and sort of adapting that as a way to manage work. And so if your organization is rigorous around the sprint cadence, then you might consider thinking about syncing up your monthly strategics and your quarterly reviews with the end of a sprint cycle. So, that's kind of interesting to reverse engineer that. And I'm not here to say that that's not easy, but it's also possible. And so just to, it's just, those are some of the things that I was thinking about when this question was asked. So to wrap back around, I think if you have a really rigorous sprint, a really rigorous project methodology in your organization, I think it'd be cool and helpful to sync this cadence up with that. If you don't, then I don't think it matters yet. That would be my answer. I would love to hear if anybody else has a different opinion about that. I see Jeff, you're off mute, and then Tommy. So Jeff, you want to chime in? Unless you're.
Oh, that was an accident.
Accidentally. Tommy, you look like you're off mute too. Do you have anything to add? Okay.
No.
Anybody else? Thoughts on this? Experiences? Counterpoints? This is not a quiet group.
No, I know it's not a quiet group.
Brian.
Well,
Yeah.
go on then. The loudmouth from England. I do know it's a really tricky question because my experience doesn't involve much of engaging many other people. It's a good thing to do, obviously, to make people aware and to feed upwards through a particular system. Most of the businesses I work with are 50 to 100 people, and the top team really know quite a lot of what's going on. It's their job in the strategy definition team to go back, cascade down, listen upwards. So I've never really been particularly strong on conducting reviews with other folks below that team. I don't know about other people, but I guess that's probably a failing of my process. I rely too much on the senior team that's there. There you go. That's my experience.
Yeah, my experience is I've worked with a lot of organizations that have existing, let's call them work plans, departmental work plans that they've been running and refreshing on a annual basis. And those departmental plans, how and why and when do they become integrated as the execution of the organizational strategic plan? And sometimes the answer is part of it does. Sometimes the answer is all of it does. And sometimes the answer is none of it does. If those departmental kind of, say, annual action plans, the operational plans for a department, do contribute and drive performance of organizational strategy, that needs to be recognized. That performance needs to be captured and laddered up to informing whether it's the initiative, the key performance indicator that resides in the strategic plan. It needs to be identified, isolated, and timed in a way where progress can be captured, shared, and fed up into the performance of the organizational plan. And those other items that are operational, yes, it's business as usual. It's important. It's great. Keep doing it. Don't try to tie that into the quarterly cycle if it is not driving, influencing the performance of the organizational strategy. And it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
And hey, Jeff, I just, so you can see Meg has her hand up. I wasn't sure if you could see Meg's hand.
Meg, do you still have your hand up?
I do. But thank you. I'm glad I get to hear your thoughts on that, because I think you captured a lot of what I am thinking and feeling as I'm listening to this conversation, because I agree this is hard. And it's a lot harder than writing a plan and delivering a plan. When you're in the trenches executing on that plan, you're feeling all the resistance of the organization. And one of the things I was going to drop in chat, but I figured I'd just say it out loud is, I'm struggling with, there's just such a consistent pull into the business as usual. And even when I use some of the definitions that we shared out here about a month ago on what's strategic and what's business as usual, and I got this very sort of energetic conversation going where my colleagues were all saying everything we do is strategic. There's no business as usual. It's all strategic. And I was like, it's not all strategic. But you don't want to your point. You said this too, Erica. I think it's the word strategic is so divisive, right? People want to be working on the strategic work because it feels more important than the business as usual work, which is a misconception, I think. So I'm still struggling with this. And one of the things I love this conversation because I've stood up lots of good places and tables to have conversations about our strategy. But I still have this whole, the organization still has this other ongoing, lots of conversations about what is not necessarily strategic, but the business as usual. So how to align those things and not kill everyone with too many meetings is really what I'm paying attention to right now. And then the last thing I'll say is that one of the ways I'm solving for this is I'm trying to really highlight problem solving as an indicator of being more strategic, right? So even if it lives in the BAU space, when I see folks finding a problem and solving a problem, I lift it up and I celebrate it and I try to get them to share it out as a way to say, there's lots of progress and growth in here that does ladder up to our strategic work. And so if we're not able to solve problems on a daily basis, then the strategy is going to sit stagnant. So that's been one way I've been doing that, but I am still playing around with meeting cadence. And just to say to this group, I think the on strategy team probably knows we're reorganizing our work inside the app to pull all of our work into what has been just our strategic plan as a way to, again, create visibility to everything that we do, and also be able to clearly talk about that laddering process, see how this all supports the strategy. It's all one body of work, as a way to hopefully create some more sense of unified energy around everything we do. So a few thoughts there.
Can I add into that, Jeff, for just a
Yeah,
sec?
please. Yeah.
Talk about this for a minute. I think this is a really central challenge for all of us. And this specific question cuts right at the heart of engaging everyone, and everyone feeling, everyone in our organization feeling like their work is purposeful. And then also not diluting the future creating, AKA strategic work that we're responsible for driving. And those are very at odds. They can be very at odds. And oh yes, and Neil, thank you. BAU, sorry, that's business as usual. Thanks. Let's spell out 3-letter acronyms. That's my bad. I typed that in there. So business as usual. And so, you know, and folks have probably heard us say this, but just as a very tactical way to deal with this. One of the things we try to do a bit too is the notion of absolutely we are asking folks to identify their OKRs or their key results that are, you know, connecting with the organizational strategic direction, and those key results that are new, AKA strategic efforts, results indicating strategic efforts are often initiatives, by the way. So I just want to say that and break the rules, but we break the rules because that's helpful. They're initiatives of things that we haven't explored before, entering a new market, new product expansion, you know, whatever those things are, they do require those project level efforts like action items and project. And so for those key results that are improving the current, AKA business as usual, we include them, but we just say, hey, we don't need action items under, you know, to support all those, or projects to support those, because we already know how to do that work. But it's really important work, and it's really important work. And so we say we have a complete strategic plan. We have a complete strategic direction for the organization that is executed through OKRs, some of those OKRs are creating the future. They are strategic efforts. They do require more attention. We are going to talk about those more because we haven't done them before. And we've thoughtfully built out project plans and project efforts to drive that work. And we have co-equal OKRs that are improving the current, because we are responsible for continuing to deliver our core operations, and we're accountable for that. But we don't need all this detail below them, because it's our core job. And so anyhow, and that was a little bit long-winded, but I do think that maybe helps. And Meg, you might be doing that as well, but that has been one way to keep the plan focused. How the meetings sync up with that is, you know, pulling out those key results or those areas that are creating the future that need a bit more discussion. So back to you, Jeff.
Good discussion. Any other thoughts, considerations, perspectives on this question? Put it into chat, raise a hand. Let's capture some of the key takeaways.
My coffee's kicking in.
You know, I think one thing that a key takeaway, and Meg, thank you for this, is keeping the finger on the pulse of what is happening at the business as usual level. There are key learnings of how we solve for things that need to be pulled into how we might solve for things in strategy. And that is creating that kind of like that synergy. So it's not a bifurcated effort between strategy versus operational business as usual. We got to bring it together. And I think your approach, that there are great things we can learn from and apply from the teams that are fundamentally focused on as business as usual. We can still learn from them, and we can evolve and grow from what they're learning. So thank you.
And I think another takeaway on that is, let's not treat everything equal in our plan. I think that's also what we're saying, right? So we're saying, you know, we maybe don't need to be prescriptive with how work gets done within teams. In some cases we do, because those OKRs are going to ladder up, but just because it's in our plan doesn't mean we have to talk about it every month. So not everything is created equal, and it's not, we don't have to use prioritization necessarily as a method for that either. Okay.
Sweet. Great key takeaways. Let's go to another question. How about if we, let's tackle something which might be pretty straightforward and simple. We'll see. How do we manage turnover and staffing during strategic planning or plan refreshes? So this is the challenge. We have people coming, people leaving. How do we lean in and support strategic planning or refreshes of strategic planning when we have a rotating door of turnover going on in the organization?